the mass shootings we had in El Paso, Texas, and Dayton, Ohio. In El Paso, 22 people dead, 11 wounded. And in Ohio, 11 dead and 12 wounded. That's the latest update on that. So, and then yesterday in Grants Pass, my son was when he was a sergeant, he was the head of the Grants Pass Oregon State Police Office, and so in an arrest there.
You can't hear you, Court.
Sorry. Test.
Yep, you're on.
We're on? Anyway, someone tried to reach for the officer's gun, the trooper's gun, and they had to shoot him. And so minor injuries there, thank God. And so quite a busy week around America, 2 days, and just unbelievable tragedy, tremendous sadness. And I just hope, and I know that the board hopes and America hopes that these senseless shootings stop and we understand what in the world's going on and how to prevent this. So yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. Moment of silence, and I'll give officer down report, firefighter report, and military deaths next Wednesday at our next business meeting. Thank you. Thanks again.
I'd also like to comment, since our sheriff is sitting here, anyone that thinks that our sheriff in this county doesn't deal with a lot of what's going on around the nation is not paying attention. We have moved to strengthen the sheriff's department because we know it's coming. And I will say I would applaud our sheriff's department for the planning and foresight he has on this. I believe we will be ready. So thank you. So do I have any amendments to the agenda? Commissioner Gold?
I'm thinking D and C under 4, the presentations might be moved to the top so those folks can get back to their places of work.
Okay, yeah, that'll only take a minute because I've got other people here waiting as well. So we can do the C first, D second, and then we'll do A and B. Is that all right?
Fine with
Yeah,
me.
that's fine with me.
Okay.
I have one on the consent agenda, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
I just want to have a quick question and maybe a comment on 5D, the intergovernmental agreement with building City of Brookings.
Okay. And then I have one to take down on 6A. I'd like to pull the budget line for the purchase of the asphalt zip grinder. Richard Christensen, we're going to pull that from now. Mr. Christensen and I spoke about this yesterday, and he doesn't feel he has enough information to come to the board on that and ask for it through the consent agenda. So we will be pulling that completely.
Tabling till next week,
Yes.
presumably. Thank you.
Any other amendments? Have a motion, please.
I move that we approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Second, Mr. Chair.
Any further comments? Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold.
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce.
Yes?
Chair Pash.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
Okay, we have public comments next. Gene Clausen, you're up. Pull one of those mics right up so we can hear you. The other one's a little taller. There you go.
All right. My name is Gene Clausen. If I'm here, it's because of the Drury County Fair. First thing I'd like to say is we've always heard that a picture is worth 1,000 words. A picture appeared in the pilot a week ago Saturday showing the ribbon cutting ceremony. And the 1,000 words that are needed to back this up are 1,000 words of what it takes to get to this point. Wednesday morning, 10 o'clock, the ribbon gets cut and the fair is open. And a lot of people need to be thanked for that, especially Nikki Sparks. Second, we went over this for the past year and we got it accomplished. We were able to breathe in the arena on motorsports night. And that was a big payoff, again, thanks to Nikki Sparks. Now, the third thing is about the department that I always participate in, land products. When I first entered the competition 3 years ago, I had 16 entries. That was enough to actually win Champion Gardener. 3 years later, I had 40 entries, including 16 firsts, 14 seconds, 3 thirds, and other awards, and I lost. That's how much the activity has increased. When Nikki Sparks saw this happening 2 years ago, she gave us the opportunity to add more vegetable and fruits and nuts to the exhibit list. And then to really help us, she moved floral down and gave us almost 50% more space to exhibit, and we filled it. It's been an incredible year. And I want to again thank Nikki Sparks for that. Then, if you'll notice, these are the Myrtlewood plaques that I received the 2 years that I won. Most of the departments get those. In this case, both years they spelled the word gardener in the Champion Gardener Award. The second year they even misspelled my name. But instead of being someone who wants to sit around and snivel and complain about the situation, I decided to do something about it, both for the trophy for the winner and also to recognize Nikki Sparks for all of her work. So using a lot of recycled materials, including a Scrabble set from the thrift store, I created the Nikki Sparks.
If you would go back to the microphone again.
I created the Nikki Sparks Golden Shovel Award. This is I'm not a skilled craftsman, but I thought I did about the best I could, and we do have this year's winner's name on there, Chris Hudson. I was not able to contact the fair office on Monday or Tuesday, but I know we'll get this to her, and then eventually we'll get it to Chris. And that's all I got to say.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Clausen, good job on the Gold Beach. That is the right shade of Gold Beach paint. Okay? So if you're not a craftsman, you know how to spray paint. That's great.
Mr. Barnes, I'm going to hold you until later on these. Connie Hunter? Morning.
Good morning. I'm Connie Hunter, and I'm from South Curry County, and glad to be here today. You know, I'm going to talk about veterans and things like that, so let's get right to it. We did 2 VA healthcare summits and a veteran suicide awareness town hall meeting, and we kept pushing to have the state of Oregon work with the VA and put together a strategic plan. When the Oregon Department of Veterans Affairs Veterans Advisory Council came to town, I spoke again at that meeting directly to ODVA Council. And I also sent a lot of the things that I work on to Alex Campbell. As a result, Oregon Veterans Behavioral Health Services Improvement Study was done. 16 recommendations were made, and coming up starting on the 8th, there will be community forums across the state of Oregon where veterans stakeholders get together and plan how the VA and the state are going to work together. Our to-do list is in that report. There isn't a thing that we didn't put forward as a recommendation from our VA healthcare summits both times and our advocacy to ODVA that's not covered in that report. I hope you get a chance to take a look at it. one of the biggest changes is the coordinated care organizations will now have veterans initiatives specific to behavioral health that they'll have to work with at the community level. So Commissioner Court Boyce, I hope you do consider being on Advanced Health's Citizens Advisory Council. But if you have a chance to take a look, the biggest thing that's coming out of this is a 5-year strategic plan, and that's what we asked for, where the VA and ODVA work together with community mental health providers. And one small caveat to that is we also have put it out there that we would like to have a military sexual trauma treatment facility. Oregon does not have one. The VA system has 2, maybe 3. I've only been able to locate 2. And we've talked about having that military sexual trauma treatment facility in Southern Oregon. And I can tell you that in that study, they looked at the feasibility of that, and it looks like something's going to come down the road for that. So I hope that we advocate from a standpoint of economic development and providing services that are sorely needed to our veterans, that we encourage that opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, trauma centers, there are only 2 in the country, entire country, is that what I'm hearing?
That's in the VA healthcare system. Now, there are sexual trauma treatment centers that are not VA, but in the VA system. And the state of Oregon doesn't have any inpatient. Now, they have outpatient, and a lot of female veterans have trouble actually obtaining VA services because of their discomfort at the VA if they've experienced military sexual trauma, especially.
Just so you know, Ms. Hunter, we are, as you know, I've become part of the NACO veterans, and we are right now looking to improve not only the veterans' care that they get in this nation. There are some bills in front of our Congress right now to move forward special facilities for these kinds of things. So they are looking at a lot of this right now.
And Chair Pash, I have to tell you that you being in that, on that committee is key to having a voice for rural veterans throughout the country. So thank you for taking the time not only to go to Washington, D.C., but to fly back here to speak at the SWOC district board meeting. And I can't tell you how much it means to me and to the veterans community to have you take on that leadership role.
Thank you. Ms. Timchek, did you want to wait until we go through the Rogue River, or do you want to have your comments now?
I can do whatever is good for you guys.
Why don't you go ahead and give me yours now then?
So much encouraging news this morning. This is a great meeting. Thank you guys for letting me speak today. I just saw that the Rogue was on the list. I don't know what's going to happen, but I came in to make a shameless plug for the council. And so I just wanted to let everybody know that the Watershed Councils, the Lower Rogue Watershed Council, is this very grassroots group that we have in the county. We represent lots of different stakeholders. We have loggers, we have fishermen, commercial fishing, businesses, recreation, Jerry's. All the folks are on there are also really concerned about the Rogue and want to make sure that it's economically stable, want to make sure that it's biodiverse, you know, everything's going on there. So we've been doing a lot of work in the Rogue since 1994, and we have a ton of data. So I just wanted to let people know that we do house a lot of data where we are too on water quality, on wetland status, on estuary work, on fish passage, all sorts of stuff. So we've done hundreds and hundreds of projects. The one thing I did wanted to let you know we're due right now, and we've been doing the last 3 years, is we test the Rogue River. The entire Rogue Basin is actually tested for E. coli on a weekly basis all summer long. And it's on the swimguide.org. So you can go there and click on any place and just make sure that the place that you're swimming is safe to swim and safe for your kids to swim. That's updated every week, and I do collect information down at Lex's Landing for the estuary. We do it at Quasatona Campground, and then at Cougar Lane. Those are the lower river, and then they do them all out throughout the upper basin. And so the other thing I just wanted to say is that the Rogue is pretty amazing. I don't think it's a dire place. I think it's a really diverse place. It doesn't seem to me to be a failing system, but it seems to be a flourishing system. I think our river is full of greatness, and we're just trying to all understand it a little bit better. And And so if anybody is interested in the Rogue River and knowing more about it or participating in discussions or decisions that get made about habitat improvements in the Rogue River, you can come see us on the third Tuesday of every month at the Curry Watersheds Partnership at 3:30. So that's when we come and hang out and chat about the Rogue. We've got a couple of really exciting estuary projects coming up next year, so stay tuned to some changes in your estuary. Right.
Commissioner Boyce?
Yeah.
This is Tim Check. Thank you very much for the work you've been doing for
Thank
a
you.
lot of years. Could you remind the citizens how to get in touch with you and your precise title as well with the Watershed Council?
Sure. I am a coordinator. Big title. But yeah, my name is Kelly Timchak, and you can reach me at kelly@currywatersheds.org or 247-2755. That's our phone number.
Are you going to be here for a while?
I'm going to stay, and listen for a little bit, but yeah, I'll be around. I have an estuary meeting at 11, which Frank is, so I'm
Well,
going to
we'll
steal
be done
Frank
with
too.
this part of it.
Okay.
He has a
County
very-
Council might have a question?
Yes, sir.
Well, you invited folks to come and visit you on the Thursdays, and you gave a name of the place, but what address is that at and time?
It's in the Gold Rush Building, if you're familiar with that, 29692 Ellensburg,
Thank you.
kind of across from Rachel's Coffee House, and we're in the far north end. We meet from 3:30 to 5 o'clock.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, John. Thanks, guys.
All right, next we're going to do we're going to take C. Anthony Vowdy, VSO, Veteran Service Officer, 5-year anniversary. Ms. Schmelzer?
Yes, Anthony could not make it today, but we do want to recognize that he has served us for 5 years already. And so when he comes in later, he will be given a little pin. We give him a 5-year pin for their years of service.
Okay, thank you. And then Vicki Scott, Parole and Probation, 10-year anniversary. Sheriff Ward?
Good morning.
Morning.
First of all, I want to thank you for your...
Oh, sure.
Thought I broke it.
Bull in a china shop.
I want to thank you for your kind words this morning, and you're correct that we have increased our staffing levels, and we're still a few people to hire, but it's pretty tough trying to find the right people for the right jobs. So I do want to give you an update, not today, but on our K-9 program. So I will schedule a time for maybe the next meeting. We can. I can tell you that they're back from their training, and this week they're trying to get updated on all the equipment, cars, cages installed in the cars and things like that. So we're getting really close to deploying our K-9 program. But today we are here to honor one of our employees with Curry County. Wanted to just kind of give a brief statement of what she has done for us in the last 10 years. We're here to honor and give tribute to Vicki Scott for her 10 years of service and dedication to Curry County Sheriff's Office and to the Curry County. Vicki started her career here in July 2009 and has been with Parole and Probation the entire time. I can't begin to tell you how valuable Vicki is to our organization. Not only does Vicki handle a high caseload with PMP, she is and has always been willing to put in extra work that is not in her job description. Vicki wears many hats and was promoted recently to PMP, Parole and Probation Administrative Assistant. Vicki steps in to process civil papers when the chief civil deputy is not available and deals with multiple people for various reasons that come into our lobby seeking assistance. Vicki's dedication and effectiveness is flawless, and she is a great ambassador who represents the face of the Sheriff's Office. Vicki is very dependable, never questioned her position, and we are so fortunate she decided to come to work for us 10 years ago. The Sheriff's Office and the community are much better off because Vicki and her professionalism. I am honored to be able to present this certificate for 10 years of service to Vicki and her tenure here at the Curry County Sheriff's Office.
We'll stand up on that.
Say a few words.
Thank you, Sheriff. Actually, it's been an honor and a privilege to serve for the past 10 years. And I really look forward, especially with the exciting changes that are coming to the Sheriff's Office. I look forward to continuing, and hopefully I can stand here in the next 10 years and accept a 20. It's
Thank
the
you
goal.
for your service.
So thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Sheriff, if you wouldn't mind, could you, do you have time to stay around for another 30 minutes?
Yeah, I have a meeting in Bannon and then another one in Coos Bay shortly, but
We're going to do a thing on the Rogue River, and you've been here most of your life, and I just wanted a few comments from you about, once you see some of these videos, you know, and what
so is
your
that coming up
feelings are.
shortly?
In about 5 minutes.
Okay.
Thanks. If you have to go, go, but
No, you have to stay.
let's do proclaiming August 17th, Clear the Shelters Day, Ms. Schmelzer.
Yes, so Penny Hudgens from the shelter in Gold Beach, she's actually on the board, she contacted us to make us aware that it was Clear the Shelters Day this month. So we want to proclaim Clear the Shelters Day. It would be August 17th. We do have a proclamation here. Chair, I think you should read it if you have it in front of you. Otherwise, I can read it. And then Penny is here to say a few words and to show us one of her lovely furry friends that somebody might be able to adopt. So how about if Penny tells us a little bit about the shelter and then we do the proclamation?
Okay.
Hi, Penny Hudgens, representing Wild Rivers Animal Rescue. The animal shelter used to be under the auspices of the county until September of 2012, I believe, and that's when they broke off. And then they became part of Pennies, what was known at that time as Pennies for Pooches, a nonprofit agency. Since that time, we attempted a merger with South Coast Humane Society in Brookings, and that didn't work out so well, but the name that we have now, Wild Rivers Animal Rescue, was the name that we were going to have at the time. And so when the merger didn't pan out, we decided to change our name to that. It's just a little more elegant name to us, and we think it just gets us out there a little bit more, but we still are also known as Pennies for Pooches Curry County Animal Shelter. So we are dependent on volunteers. We have a few staff. We were open 7 days a week, but unfortunately we had some staffing issues and not a lot of volunteers. So we're now only open Tuesdays through Saturdays, 10 to 4, and we're hoping to get back to that. So, but mainly I wanted to introduce Cinnamon to you. Cinnamon is a year-old, what we believe to be a Vizsla pit mix. He's about the sweetest dog you'd ever saw. We have taken him to events, and he is the hit of the event. And he loves everybody. He loves dogs. We're pretty sure he's okay with cats. He's just a sweetheart.
A Vizsla okay with cats?
He hasn't reacted to any dog, so we're going to guess, we never know, but we kind of suspect. He's very mellow. And he just, like I said, he just loves everybody, and he deserves a good home, just like all of our animals do.
Looks like he's finding one
Okay.
back there.
No personality, though.
Well, let me read the proclamation then. Whereas every year millions of companion animals end up in shelters across the country, and while shelter adoption rates have been steadily rising since 2011, excuse me, according to the American Society for Prevention of Cruelty of Animals, approximately 1.5 million animals, 860,000 cats, and 670,000 dogs are still euthanized each year due to overcrowding in shelters. Whereas the number of euthanized animals could be reduced dramatically if more people adopted pets instead of buying them. And by adopting a shelter animal, you actually save 2 lives. Last year, more than 100,000 pets were adopted from over 1,200 shelters across the country. Since 2015, Clear the Shelters have helped 257,000 pets find their forever homes. Whereas during the last fiscal year, 112 animals have been brought to the Gold Beach shelter. Also during that time, 102 were adopted, 5 were fostered, and 7 were returned to their owner, and 9 were transferred out of the area. Curry County has 2 no-kill shelters, the South Coast Humane Society in Brookings and the Wild Rivers Animal Rescue in Gold Beach. At the Wild Rivers Animal Rescue alone, there are 15 dogs and 26 cats available for adoption. Now, therefore, the Curry County Board of Commissioners urges you to adopt a pet and hereby proclaims August 17th as Clear the Shelters Day. And be it further proclaimed that if you are unable to help clear our shelters, we urge you to please donate cleaning supplies, food, or sponsor an adoption. The Curry County Board of Commissioners. Do I have a motion?
I move that we adopt this proclamation, sorry.
Second?
Second, Chair Pash.
Any further comments? Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce,
Yes?
Chair Pash.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your volunteer and your service.
I'd like to, if I can, we have some events coming up that I'd like to mention.
Sure.
On August 31st, we are partnering with Hunter Creek Bar and Grill. They're going to have a parking lot party. We're going to have a live band. It's going to start probably between 5 to 9. We're still working out some of the details, but we're also going to be bringing a couple of our dogs down there to show off and have a little bit of merchandise to sell. On September 21st, Chutco Brewery in Brookings is holding their Oktoberfest. They are going to have a dunk tank where nonprofits can be sponsored for that. And our own Commissioner Boyce has agreed to be a donkey that day. So
You
come
will
on
have a
down.
line. You will have a line, brother.
You'll be bringing it into the fence to trip it by hand, won't you?
And then on October 19th, we're going to be having a golf tournament at Cedar Bend Golf Course. So we still are working on the details of that, but as soon as we get everything put together, we will post it on our Facebook page.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, next we're going to do a very amateurish presentation of the state of the Rogue River. Thanks. As many of you know, our river is constantly changing, and I've been told that rivers normally meander, and yes, they do. This one, however, at this time, has received an inordinate amount of rock coming down at the last several years. So we've started to look into how we can make changes to that and how we can correct it. I've been in touch with Congressman DeFazio's office several times on this. His office has been instructed to go over the Corps of Engineers and speak directly with the Department of Transportation on this to try and find some resolutions. Last week, I was with Alex Campbell here in Gold Beach, and forgive me, I didn't bring his name with me, but one of the scientists that has visited the Rogue many, many times was with him. And I want to say his words were to me that he has been coming to this river for several decades, and he has never seen the amount of gravel and rock in this river that there currently is. He feels imperative to him that we do something on this rather quickly. And his quote to me was, "I think someone has finally put a cork in the end of the Rogue River." I went out the last few days and I missed, okay, first I want to qualify, I am not a videographer or whatever they're called, so these are very amateurish, and I did actually miss the negative tide, so what the videos that I have on here are actually at a time that we are a 1 foot positive tide. So you're not going to see absolute low tides here. This is what the river looks like at a 1 foot rising tide. I will also say this was done with a drone, and I'll head off any emails. Yes, I was in Gold Beach airspace, and yes, I am a licensed, certified pilot to be able to do that. So I don't need the emails, thank you. So here's a video that was taken in front of Greg's, the old mailboats place. And this used to be a navigable channel here on the left side. You'll see where all of his ties are for his pier. And down below this is Lex's Landing, which I'm sure most of us in Curry County are very familiar with. I just want to say that when I moved here 10 years ago, this channel was basically clear. It was a fully navigable channel, and it was highly affected by tide, but a lot of this rock was not here. And what I want to show you is, as we come back in front of Greg's here, and yeah, you're going to get a little bit of flash from the sun here, look at the amount of rock that has come into this channel. Look at where Greg's docks used to be. This is for the mailboats, yes. This was a functioning business with a 6 to 8 foot deep channel that was fully navigable, and it could be affected by a 3 to 4 foot negative tide, and it was still a viable business. As you can see, it is completely rocked in, and then just below this, at the end of the video, you'll see Lex's Landing, and I have Larry here from Lex's Landing that at the end of this video, I would like him to come up and speak about what he sees at his business and when he sees this amount of rock getting to him if nothing is done. Because I want everyone here to know that these videos and this testimony that is going to be said in this room this morning, I am going to forward to Congressman DeFazio's office. And it's going to restart itself automatically. So, Larry, if you would just step up to the microphone and make a few comments about what you see in that channel and what you see coming to your business.
I'm Larry Presidenzi. I have Lexus Landing on the North Bank here. You know, when I first got here, I'm not a public speaker, by the way. When I first got here in 2002, learning all about life on the river, when the river gets high in the wintertime, we get over 100,000 CFS, cubic feet per second. I took notice, and where my cleaning stations are down by the river, the concrete there, it would take 90,000 cubic feet per second to breach that concrete. So as time went on, I think it was about 2008, and I'm looking at the NOAA guide, I'm not including the Illinois. In about 2008 and 2009, it only took 60,000 cubic feet per second to breach the concrete at my cleaning stations. So in the last few years, since it was been 5-6 years since they took the dams out, a lot of this aggregate is moving down. And whereas when you see it every day, like you see a child, I guess, you don't notice things, but when somebody comes around once a year and says, oh my God, your child has grown, you know, this is, people come back to my place and they go, oh my God, where did that island come from? And to explain how this is really happening now, I tell people this has been doubling every year for about the last 5-6 years. To be clear, if you have $1, the next year you have $2. After that you have $4. Now you have $8. This is how this is increasing in this bay here, and below the bridge, above the bridge. We have the premier salmon fishing river on our western seaboard. This is the place to fish, and the salmon are our livelihood in this county. There is no place for these salmon to acclimate. This channel used to be 30 feet deep years ago when I used to come fish here 20 years ago before I moved here. The fishing is really slow this year. The water in front of my place is 74 degrees. That's a 20-degree difference from the ocean that they're coming out of. They really don't want to come up into the bay. We're having better fishing these last couple of days because we have the extreme tides. We're having a big 7-foot push in tides, which helps bring the cooler water in. But the fishing is so important to this community, and this river is just the lifeblood of this county. So whatever we can have done or make happen, I think it's imperative that we get this done. My docks in the next 2 years, I'll be in bad a shape as Greg's pilings right there if something doesn't get done. So.
Thank you, and I'm sorry I misspoke. I called you Larry Pilati. He's a good friend of mine back east. So
my last name is
Prestonese Pilati, they're both Italian.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
my
Just
last
keep the
name is
Lexus part.
Thank you, Larry, and I appreciate Lex's business here, and we are going to do something, and we do have some people that are very interested. Like I say, when we have the kind of people that I've been speaking to the last few weeks saying there's a cork in the Rogue River we need to fix, I think we can get some things done. Commissioner Boyce, did you have a
Did
comment?
you want a discussion now on this, or?
I'd like to show a couple more videos and then just ask Sheriff a comment so that he can get out of here, because I know he's got a meeting to go to. And then we can open up some other public comments on this and go from there. That should be the minimizer. Nope, that's the maximizer.
One below.
Yeah, far left, yep.
This was just a little bit more telling. This is a pretty short one. It's only about 30 seconds. I just took off from Greg's, right off his dock there. And basically what I do is just do a 180 here and just actually kind of traverse. This was like Larry said, this was a very deep channel just a few years ago. And this business is for sale. I mean, it's not the mailboats anymore, but this is still a viable business that could be for sale that is now basically unsaleable because it's not navigable water anymore. Excuse me. This is an uphill, just set it at about 400 feet, and just did a pan view here of upriver. This is the landing restaurant here, and there's a shoal that goes completely across here. You can see the gray area right there. There's a shoal that goes completely across the river there. Like I said, this is 1 foot after low tide. This was 1 foot more in the river. And I don't know the technical terms for that, but. And then I have one more short one of the port. And you have to forgive me, this was the day before, and I had about a 25 knot wind at 400 feet, so the drone is at about a 30-degree angle. But if you look here at the amount of rock in the river, this is after the Corps was here to clean it out. And I've been told that since the Corps was here, the port opening into the actual port is in worse condition now than it was before they cleaned it. They made a bigger problem for them. And again, you'll have to, I mean, just the glare off the water and everything here. I didn't get real good footage of this. Exactly, you can see just how shallow the base is here. And this is, again, you've got 1 foot of positive water back into the river from low tide. And a good stiff breeze. And this actually goes into the opening for the port itself. And you'll see the shoal that is basically in front of that. I mean, here's the opening of the port here. And look at the rock shoal that goes completely across. So when you come out of the port, you basically, and there's another big rock shoal right there. And that was supposed to have been taken out. And I want to go back to that. That at low tide comes out of the water. So you basically, the jet boats come out and they go this way, and then they kind of maneuver with the moving water, and then they have to come out this way. And at a low tide the other day, I watched one of the jet boats, and because there's another shoal right here, you can see another shoal right here, and he literally nosed into that, and then he had to back down again and squeeze through this little narrow area right here, and then they have to go back against the rock wall, follow it, and then they can go out once they get almost to the mouth of the river. From what I've been told by guides, by the boat drivers, by everyone I've spoken to, the amount of rock in this river will make this river not navigable in another couple of years. So Sheriff, you've been here most of your life, if you would, I'm not asking you to side with me or against me. I just like to see it or hear any changes because you've got Marine deputies out there, you know.
Well,
exactly
I was born and raised here and fished this river since I was 6 years old, and I'm 61 years old. So in the last 5 or 6 years, you've really noticed what's been happening. I mean, the river used to go on the north side of Elephant Rock up there, and it'd be big channels along by where Greg Walling's place was, mailboats, was like all deep and everything. But the last couple of years, I mean, it's really noticeable that there's something going on that, you know, I don't know how we're going to fix it. It needs to be fixed. You look at what's, like you said, when the fishing was going on out there, it's pretty slow. You don't have the water that used to be able to fish, and how many boats are out there. There's a lot of moss that's, you know, you go 20 feet and you're having to clean off your thing because the water's so warm. The fish have no place to go when they come in to get acclimated. They have no deep holes to hang up into. So you got a lot of issues out there that because of what's going on here. And I agree, if something's not done in the next couple of years, you're not going to be able to get in and out of this port at all. And the fishing people's not going to be able to fish. The economy's going to be tanking. So as far as the tourism, who wants to come and recreate here if that's what they're coming to do is fish, and there's no fish, and there's no way to fish. So I agree, wholeheartedly support what, the commission's trying to do is figure out a way to get this gravel back out of here and open it up for our tourism.
Thank you, sir. I'd just like to also say that, I agree with Larry. I mean, the Rogue River is the Rogue River. This isn't a little stream that runs down through a property. Rogue River is a famous recreational fishing river. It is the lifeblood of a lot of counties in this state. And without a navigable channel, we're going to lose our fishing, we're going to lose our recreation, we're going to lose our tourism, and the economic fallout from that will be huge. So I'm going to continue to urge the state and federal government to do all they can to free the process of permitting to clear the channel. I was glad to hear Sheriff mention Elephant Rock, because I've been told by many of the locals here that there used to be, the river would hit Elephant Rock, and then it would make a turn, and it would exhaust the channel. It could move so fast that the rock could be exhausted through the channel at Elephant Rock, and it would keep it clear. But now it's meandered over, and it's slowed the pace of the river down, so that's what's causing the river to dump. I would ask Commissioner Boyce, you've been a jet boat driver and on this river your entire life as well. I mean, what do you see, and do you see the same things that we're all seeing?
Well, I have a lot of concerns, and I think this is in the disaster category, and I'm incredibly thankful as a citizen, as a public official, and as a river user, of course. I don't know what my volume's doing there, but thank you. I think it does go under the disaster category. People say, okay, Boyce is going to bring it back to the fires, but I think it's very legitimate. The sheriff said something about water temperature. When you lose as much shade as we've lost in the Kalmiopsis wilderness, the other side of the Chetco Bar watershed, the amount of shade with the devastation, what's going to happen? The Illinois River right now is as warm as a Rogue, and it's normally, correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Tim Chack, it's normally 4 or 5 degrees cooler than the Rogue. Yes, and so without that coolness, it affects the fisheries. I'm not a big proponent. The dams going out did their damage. There's not a lot of additional damage, in my view, for what I know about it, that's going to contribute to that. I run on the beach. Well, I walk and then run. In February, I showed you some pictures of the burnt logs that come down. Something I failed to get pictures of were the amount of topsoil. I argue some of the best topsoil in the world to come down the Kalmiopsis, the Illinois, from the Klondike fire, out of the Kalmiopsis wilderness. The mounds of it just south of the jetty, that soil, on the beach, it looked like hundreds and hundreds of full dump truck loads. My point is this: so much of that soil goes out into the ocean. And we need to study this so what I'm offering is valid. So much of that soil goes out into the ocean, and that leaves what you just filmed there. The rock moves, the gravel aggregate moves, but it doesn't move to the extent, and of course as easily as the soil. So that pileup of gravel, to your point and to everybody's concern here, I don't think we've seen anything yet, because without the watershed holding in the fire scar areas, everything comes down the side of the mountain. And, or not everything, but so much of it comes down that affects. And one more thing, I was in the FEMA meeting with Port of Brookings 2 weeks ago, whatever it was. They have an engineer down there that I think is very credible. And you may have heard this statistic, but 4,000 tons are what they normally get coming down in the springtime. And we didn't get it last year, but we got it this year on the Chetco. And they believe that they can prove that it was 10 times that. So I may have this incorrect, but I'm almost positive it's 40,000 tons in the Chetco in the Chetco River estuary. So we need to be very aware of what is going on in our watersheds, and not to mention how that affects the Brookings Harbor water supply. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all I have for now.
Thank you. All right, Commissioner Gold?
I was at a meeting with the Port of Brookings manager several weeks ago, and he mentioned that they had an engineer actually measure the sediment coming down the river previous to the Chetco Bar fire. Now, after the Chetco Bar fire, as Commissioner Boyce was stating, it's 10 times as much. And so they're having the same problems in the Chetco River with needing dredging as we have in the Rogue River. So while we're doing things for the Rogue, we probably need to do it for the Chetco also.
Okay, good. David Barnes, you had some comments?
Thank you, David Barnes.
By the way, I'd also like to thank you and appreciate your work on this as well.
I was about to say the same thing, Commissioner. Thank you very much for really grabbing this bull by the horns and getting a hold of it. The video you showed earlier up by the landing, I keep my boat up there for the summer, so I appreciate that. And there is the shoal that you showed. It's a shame you couldn't get it at negative low, because there's an island off the docks out there, and it seems to get bigger and bigger all the time. That shoal only provides for 2 small channels to get around it to go upriver from there, and it's just, you can come up on this side or on that side, but the middle of the river right now is almost unnavigable again. So, but I wanted to say thank you. We talk about fish. CAF had a fishing derby last weekend, 3-day fishing derby, and I'm going to say the number was 18 fish caught, but I'm pretty sure it was 16. In a 3-day fishing derby. That was all the salmon that were caught in the river out here. So I just want to point that out. Thank you.
Thank you. And this will inevitably, economically, hurt our businesses, our counties, not only Curry County, but all the counties in the Rogue Basin. This is something we have to deal with. We have to hold our higher-ups of the state and federal government. We have to hold their feet to the fire on this. Maybe write Congressman DeFazio's office and let him know the severity of this in our county and throughout the Rogue Basin. But this is something that we have to hold their feet to the fire, because this is our children's future. This is this county's future here, that we can have viable businesses. I certainly wouldn't want to see Lex's Landing go away. I certainly wouldn't want to see the fishing guides that are losing all of their businesses because, it's funny, during the steelhead season this year, I heard that there were a lot of guides that didn't even call their normal customers because they knew they weren't going to catch a fish. So they didn't want to take a chance to lose those customers by having such a slow season. Ms. Timchuk, did you have one more comment?
Just super quick. I just wanted to say, as you guys move forward, feel free to check in with us too, as we do have that stakeholder group that does represent a lot of different communities within, so you can get a lot of different voices towards your initiatives. And again, we've been collecting water quality data with ODFW in the estuary. We just took water temperatures a couple days ago. It's actually quite cold in the estuary right now. And I don't know, I would just say I wish people weren't so adverse to changes and differences, because I know 60 years is a long time, but it's not. You're very young, Sheriff Ward, really.
Well, I just want to say though that forgive me, I don't remember his name. I can go get it for you and tell you his name. But he was one of the scientists that have worked on this river for a long time.
Yeah.
And he said in all his years of coming here, he's never seen it like this. And he said that rivers do meander. Mm-hmm. He said, but this is and this is a quote from him. This river is far beyond the meandering, and it needs to be put back into its channel.
And that's okay. Yeah, and I will listen to all those arguments. And again, I'm not against doing something. I just say, let's think about it before we do it, because I have historical photos from 1939 forward, and anyone can look at them, and that river has been full of sediment before and not full of sediment. There's giant gravel bars, there's no gravel bars. So there are a whole lot of differences, and you weren't alive in 39, Mr. Boyce. But anyway, okay. I just want to say, because everybody says, put it back the way it used to be, but it thinks, which year was your favorite year of the Bay? Maybe last year, but it was too crowded, even though there were tons of fish.
Don't leave, Ms. Timchuk.
Go ahead.
Sorry, guys. Yeah.
Two things. I'd like to have a report from Steve Byerlin, even at just one page, on what his background is for the 48 years, 45 years, whatever. He's been involved in helping and certainly helping the county. Would like to have your help on, I think it comes back to the basics, and that's and approaching with a little bit of an optimism, rebuilding the forest that'll improve the watersheds, hold the soil, which will stop some of the gravel coming down. One more thing.
Yeah.
The pictures that you would compare,
Yeah.
we're not getting the massive floods come through. And so I think that might be a factor. That's, yeah. For
I
what
got a
that's
good
worth.
70s photo for you.
But
Call
we'd
me.
like to have your help with the watershed and pull everybody together and see how we can jointly make a difference here. Thank you, Mr.
Yeah,
Okay.
and thank you guys for all your help. Yeah, thank you.
All right, so at this time, we're going to take a break at 10 o'clock. I think maybe it's apropos we'll take it a few minutes early so that we can just go ahead and roll through the next part of the meeting. So we'll be back in 10 minutes. Moving to number 5, the consent agenda. Why don't we talk about D, as Commissioner Boyce wanted to have comments on that?
Is that intergovernmental agreement?
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to highlight the effort that's gone into that. I know that Chris Cameron.
There you go. Thank you.
Mr. Thomas, Brookings Building Inspector, is only going to be helping us maybe 6 hours a week. Is that correct? Roughly?
It varies. It
Okay.
depends on workload.
But the point is here, that's the cities, county working together, and that is the future. I don't see any way around serious problem solving unless we can continue this. And I really appreciate the work you've done, Director Smelzer, and the willingness of Brookings to contribute and participate. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to move on for approval of the consent agenda. A, Board of Commissioners meetings from July 10th. B would be special meeting of July 24th, 2019. C would be a business meeting July 24th, 2019. D is the extend the building inspection IGA agreement with the City of Brookings. E, subscription agreement Teamsters 223 Sheriff's Health Insurance. F, subscription agreement for non-related employees' health insurance. G, amendment number 2, extending the deadline for the Brookings Head Start project. H, Moss Adams strategic plan contract, yay. I, higher order plumbing inspector irregular employee, Julian Saavedra. J, higher orders pending background checks for maintenance and construction worker 1, Jeffrey Bonotto and Jesse Bond. K, higher order pending background check for maintenance and construction worker Weston Robbins. L, higher order for assistant veteran service officer irregular employee Adele Pittman. Hope I said that right. M, job description for assistant facilities maintenance director. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Could I have a
Point
Mr.
of order?
Chair? Yeah, if I could. So in our personnel rules, the Board of Commissioners, we have a director of operations who oversees county operations but doesn't have any authority to hire or fire anyone. As you look on these hire orders, and a couple of them said subject or pending background check, all of our hire orders have background checks to be done. And because the Board of Commissioners is the appointing authority, it's up to the Board of Commissioners to review those background checks. If you remember, we recently had some direction and clarification on our background check procedure. What I would ask, and I'm sorry at this late stage, is that we take I, J, K, and L and move them after the executive session, which is consider employment of a public official, so that we can go over some of the pertinent application information and background information for the board during an executive session. So,
Okay, so let's look for a motion to approve the consent agenda, and other than as a change to amend I, J, K, and L till after the executive session.
thank you.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I'll second that.
Further comment?
I have a comment.
Ms. Schmelzer?
The comment was made to me yesterday about the number of people we are hiring and that it looks like certain departments are getting special privileges, getting people hired and reclassifications. And I just want to comment that I did go back through the files and a lot of these people are filling vacant positions. And there's only been 2 positions that have actually been that I'm aware of that have been existing positions that have been reclassified to a higher position. One was the veteran service officer who was making basically a clerical wage. He's now at the same level as our coordinators, some of our coordinators. He's a department head. He has about 2,000 veterans that he helps, a little over 2,000 veterans that he helps on his caseload. It was only fair to bring him up to a coordinator position, if not a department head. And then the other one was when Louise left, when the finance director left, she had indicated some errors and how the job description really did not fit the position. So we revised that, and LGPI, who tells us what these positions should be paid, came back and told us, this needs to be at a different class. So for those people in the public or departments or employees that really feel that we're not being fair, I just want people to be aware that it's only been 2 that have actually been reclassed. The other ones are either completely new positions that we have added or ones that are filling existing positions, such as Veteran Service Officer with that irregular employee. That has been in his budget for a long time. He's had that position in there for a long time. It's just that he had a vacancy, and the vacancy was going on there for quite a while. So it appears that we have a new hire or that he's getting special treatment. That is not the case, and I just want the public to be aware of that. So.
Thank you. All right, any further comments? Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold.
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce.
Aye.
Chair Pash.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
All right, getting on to discussion and action items. A has been pulled, so we'll go to B, SWAC Southern Oregon Community College costs and revenues. I would invite Mr. Barnes to please step up to the microphone for your comments, and then stay there so that we can maybe have some commiserating between us.
Okay. Hi, I'm David Barnes. I went to the SWAC board meeting that they had a couple of weeks ago down in at the Brookings campus, and Dean Bunn got in touch with me a couple of weeks after that and asked me to come down and speak to him. So I've been down. I went down there last Monday, and I went down again this Monday. And I've spent a few hours talking to Dean Bunn and going over things with him. Gave me a tour of the campus. We have a problem where there's, I guess, let me put it this way, our blessing is our bane. You know, from where I stand right here, if I go out 50 miles in any direction, we have less than 25,000 people living in that circle. And while it's our beauty of Curry County, and it's one of the biggest draws, it also presents a problem for us because we don't have the client base, for lack of a better word, that we need to support things. You know, we don't have a lot of usage of our hospital. We don't have a lot of, this year there's not going to be a football team in Gold Beach, I hear. You know, we can't get a fast food restaurant between Brookings and Bandon because we just don't have enough people to support them. And I really feel that SWAC is suffering from the same type of thing. I went over their budgets. Dean Bunn sent me their budgets. And in 15-16, there's only seven cost centers associated with the Curry County campus. There's well over 100 associated with the Coos campus. But in school year 16-17, the total budgeted amount for the Curry campus was $1.5 million. In 17-18, it went down to $1.4 million. Then in 18-19, it was $1.1 million, and this year it's $871,000. The budget for Curry County starts on page 284. I went back up before that, and the budget before that is the athletics department at the Coos campus. The total budgeted amount for the athletics on the Coos campus is $860,000, $11,000 less than the entire budget for the Curry campus. I went down, when I spoke to Dean Bunn about this, he sent me off a list of other places that are charged money for Curry. You know, shared services, basically. There was the president's office, there's 5 or 6 vice presidents, there's almost a dozen deans, there's 3 directors, and then there's staff. The salaries for these people, just best guesstimating it by Doug Bunn, was the salaries total approximately $2.25 million. If you add 40% onto that for their benefits package, you're at $3 million. You know, we have a gap of $1.3 million between what we contribute to SWAC and what they're spending on our campus. If you take that $3 million and multiply it by the 38.8% that is our local contribution, you come out with that $1.3 million. But by the same token, the Dean of Student Success, the Dean of Student Retention, they're not spending a lot of time down here. They're not spending a lot of focus down here. From what I gained from our conversations was, you know, Curry was pretty much a forgotten campus until this conversation started. You know, I know that Commissioner Pash, you and I discussed this last November in your shop when we were looking at the boat. We discussed SWAC for the first time. And, you know, I've only recently really started looking into it. And, you know, we give them a lot more than we get. You know, the other day, Dean Bunn told me, you know, if I asked the Coos County campus for another $1 million to spend on the Curry campus, what would I spend it on? And, you know, that's the biggest question to be answered. You know, how do we, if we got them to spend more money here, what do we want them to spend it on? So, you know, that's pretty much what I have right now. You know, if you have any questions.
Well, I just, I want to make a few comments, and I'm hopeful. First of all, I was glad to see that all three of our board members were at that meeting. It was nice to show the unity of this board, that they do see and understand the seriousness of the campus here and the tax revenue base that I feel personally they are not meeting the goals of what it was intended for. To my concern was I came back all the way up here for that meeting, and I was told I would have a 15-minute block of time, and I got 3 minutes of comments. And I would have liked to have asked the board and Doug Bunn a lot more questions at that meeting. I was not allowed at the time. As many here know, I have been very vocal that the academics in this county are necessary, and we need to have the proper teachers to teach those academic courses. I mean, I'm thrilled that the high schools want to be involved with teaching college credit programs, but I don't feel like those teachers are qualified. Well, put it this way, if we have more qualified people than that in the county, I think those should be the people that should be being called on. Evidently, we have the budget for it. Why they aren't using that is beyond me. These are some of the further questions I would have liked to have asked that board. Why don't we do more of a vocational program in this county? Curry County is a vocational county. We are timber. We are fishing guides. We are farmers. We are fabricators. You know, we have these kind of minds in Curry County. Do we need academic courses? Do we need nurses? Absolutely, and that's a wonderful part of the growth of this county. But we also need vocational training. We need to have people like Freeman Marine to continue to grow in this county. The farming, the loggers, the fishermen, the hatchery people, you know, learning more about the Rogue River, having vocational classes that you could do a classroom atmosphere in the school and then put it to use in a vocational setting. When I learned to fly, we did ground school at night. The next morning, it was a prerequisite with my instructor. You do the ground school class one night, the next morning you go fly what you learned that night before in ground school. So you could do the academic part of a lot of the vocational aspects of the jobs in this county, and then work with businesses in this county vocationally to do the hands-on training and or use the campus for a lot of this. So that's a lot of the thrust of where I wanted to go with the SWAC meeting. I appreciate the numbers and the work that you have done on this, on the budget, and I appreciate you taking the time with Mr. Bunn. I was glad to see that at least he gave that time to someone, because it wasn't given to me, I felt, at the board meeting. But I would hope that this board would realize that the taxpayers of this county are giving almost $2.2 million a year to this school, and I would hope that this school would sit with the proper people, including part of this board, and give us equal representation on the board, that we have board members on that board, and I know they say it was offered, but this is a new day. Let's re-offer. And we would have also, a chance to be involved in the curriculum that the school has. And I would also like to see that either Mr. Bunn or someone authorized from his board meet with this board in a workshop and discuss their budget, how much money they retain from this county, and how much money they spend on the campus versus, from what I understand, a new $24 million building being built on the campus in Coos County. So these are issues that we need to face, because the taxpayers of this county need to understand. We get $1.8 million roughly for the entire general fund of Curry County, and this campus gets almost $2.2 million annually from the same taxpayers. The campus by itself gets more money than the entire general fund of this county. Just think about that for just a few moments. Commissioner Gold?
I just want to mention that the voters voted in that tax rate for SWAC. And the only way that that can be changed is through the voters. But there are some things that are being done. I, at that meeting, suggested some possible solutions. And one thing that's been done since there, I had a talk with Dr. Bunn yesterday. They formed an ad hoc committee. This is of citizens there in Curry County, that they're coming up with possible seminars and so forth to...
I had this conversation with him on Monday. MOOC classes, which are multiple occupancy online courses, like a TED Talk type of thing. You know, like I mentioned earlier, it's just now since our wheel is squeaking is the first time that we're really getting attention. You know, no one in the past 5 or 6 years, no one has ever really said anything to SWAC about the Curry campus, and they just let it go. And, you know, we were just the forgotten stepchild down here, you know, and that's what happened, you know.
And I want to just say this to Commissioner Gold with respect, ma'am, okay? The voters did vote this in, but I think the voters were sold a bag of goods that haven't been delivered. They voted in, you know, this district or this money every year to be given to the campus. And as we can see by the numbers, if the voters of this county knew that of the $2-some million that they were giving every year, only $870,000 of it was going to be left in Curry, and Coos County was going to benefit from our tax dollars, not to mention that we pay almost twice the dollar per voter rate than Coos County does. I don't know if that election would have turned out with the same result. Commissioner Gold?
I'll have to say I was part of that election, and part of how it was sold was we were told that our taxes would not increase. Of course, I looked at my tax bill and, you know, it didn't say that. But bottom line, we cannot dictate anything to any district. I think it's good that we went to the meeting and made people aware, and I think it's good that they're paying attention, and I'm going to be going to some of those ad hoc committees just to see what's going on. So
there are things that we can do to change things. I've spoken to, I don't have the name on the top of off the tip of my tongue, but the Higher Education Coordinating Committee.
Yes, and we've all spoken with them already.
Right.
Yes.
You know, I know you've spoken to them. I spoke to them as well. So I also spoke to the Department of Revenue and the Department of Special Districts, and found out got as much information as I could on this. One of the things that, you know, we have to keep in mind here that, a side note, Jim Colin has started a program where he's going to get us down to a 7 or 8 year reassessment goal of having all the houses done and bring up our property values and collect the right amount of money. 70 cents of every $1,000 that we increase in our property values goes right to SWAC. So our $2.2 million that we're contributing this year is only going to get bigger as our tax assessments become more regular and get done more regular. So, next year, if we're giving them more money, it's still, we're going to be getting, in the last 4 years, the amount spent on the Curry camps has dropped by 50%. If we keep, as we give them more, we should be getting more. Another thing I want to point out on what Mr. Pash said about being a vocational county, how many human resources managers are there in all of Curry County? Finance directors, working in private business? Very few. We don't need to be graduating sociologists, political science majors from our schools here. We need people who can run a machine, who can fix a machine, things like that. That's basically what we are. We don't have big businesses here that require a lot of the things that you would need a 4-year college degree for. So to prepare kids for that is preparing them to move away and not come back again, because there's nothing here for them once they get their 4-year degree. It's unfortunate, but it's the way things are here. So,
Thank you, sir.
thank you.
Don't leave.
Oh, Commissioner Boyce?
Damn, so close.
I appreciate any time you keep a discussion like this going. I'm not in a hurry to go anywhere, so I hope that we can take just a little bit of extra time here. Correct me if I'm wrong, it wasn't Dean Bunn that limited you to 3 minutes, it was the board director?
Yes.
Swak, thank you. Help me on the clarification here, and then I have one more comment, Mr. Chair. You did say, and I think it's very accurate, that we are giving a lot more than we're getting. I didn't hear that backwards, did I, Mr.
No,
Barnes?
you did not,
Thank you
sir.
very much. Okay. So you mentioned squeaky wheels. Curry County has a lot of squeaky wheels, and thanks to, not to be over complimentary, but thanks to your attention to this, we're trying to keep the wheels from falling off in a lot of categories and disasters that we're dealing with. That's not said out of pessimism, but is said out of reality. And that reality is that we have to deal, and sometimes it takes us a while to catch on to what the issues are. And so in this sense, related to other issues that this county's had to deal with because of our isolation, because of our rural nature, as you point out, some say frontier, we're just getting started. And so it gives me more optimism, actually, that we can work with this advisory group, that we can say, hey, Coos County, we know better. You're our big brother, and you can make this right like that. Back to the board member positions, we need to promote that, and I think that there's some real good opportunity there. We only have, as you've stated many times, one Curry representative on that 7-member board, and not to be negative, but I sense that even that one board member that day was not prohibited, but discouraged a little bit from speaking out. And he's a very good board member, in my personal opinion. That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Ms. Hunter had a comment card in on this as well.
Hi, I'm Connie Hunter. I'm glad, thank you for letting me come up to speak right now. There are a couple pieces to the puzzle that aren't being talked about. When you take $1 million a year or more than $1 million a year away, you've taken away two things. You've taken away your economic development momentum for building things like student housing, investing in workforce development, the trades and trade school, and that planning that's essential, including strategic planning or a business plan specific to Curry County. Nobody's bothered to do that. We've asked to have input, and the way that the advisory council or the advisory committee at SWAC for Curry County has worked is basically a few cherry-picked people with an idea that they're going to do great things at Coos County and basically pare us down to the 1 or 2 pages that we're seeing right now. There are other pieces of the puzzle to look at in that other special districts are affected by the fact that SWAC is not doing what they used to do. For example, the GED testing, no longer done by our college district. We're still paying for it as if we're getting it done, but where it's being done right now is at the Curry Library, and what essentially is happening is we're still paying paying for that service, not getting it. Our special district is now paying for that, so they're taking a double dip for that. And also, when you look at programs like the College Now program, that's not budgeted in a huge way at the college, and they keep acting like that's a college program. It's not. Our school districts are footing that bill. Another piece of the puzzle, the foundation. The college foundation comes here and takes money, donations, into a foundation. How much of that money is designated specifically to Curry County? Or are they taking all those resources and all those donations and taking them into a general fund, and we don't get that here? So when we say that 1.3 million is going north, well, we're ending up paying for more things, and our resources from the like the foundation soliciting grants or donations locally. So they're not telling the truth in a broad sense. The other part of it is we know what we'd spend the money on. We'd develop our campus, and if we can't get them to work with us to the extent that we're satisfied, then I don't have a problem with encouraging Curry County to consider separating from that district. Thank you for letting me speak.
Connie?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We're at risk of losing that campus. Is that an overstated concern?
Okay, I could
Are we at
hear.
risk of losing that campus? Is that overstated in your viewpoint? I mean, I give you no warning on that question, but it's a concern I have. If we're not...
Curry campus has been basically set up to become a distance learning hub. And it was said to me early on by Dr. Bunn, if I told you the new direction of the campus, you'd come against me. Those words exactly, they etched in my mind. And at the time, I didn't understand. And just because Skip works, my husband works at the college, Skip Hunter, does not mean that I hear from him, because we don't talk about those things. But I start doing the math.
They would accuse you of lacking objectivity, Miss.
Well, what I'm saying is I was trained as an investigative reporter. I'm not going to take his word for it alone. When a group of people came to me and said to me, we can't deal with it anymore, not only are we being mistreated, not only are our services being cut back, 38.8% of the money going north doesn't buy us 38.8% of the services. And thank you for mentioning that, David, because that's huge. Our the Veteran Service Office from the college comes once a month. That's not 38.8%. That's about 6% of the staff time. So we get whittled on all ends of it. As much money as can go north, and that includes no marketing. And I asked Dr. Bunn straight up, I said, we need to do more marketing. He said, we have no marketing budget. We've never asked for a marketing budget, and we're not going to ask for a marketing budget. Well, when you don't have a marketing budget and you don't have a plan that's a business plan and couple those things together, you can't build. If you don't have development people writing additional grants and planning for our area, we have no staff set up to specifically write grants and go after more money specifically for Curry County. Even the foundation takes the money into the general fund.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, do you share that concern that if we misstep here or lose this focus, we could lose that campus?
I don't know if we can lose the campus. I think that we have some avenues we can take to protect the county and the tax base that the taxpayers' money that we haven't really delved into fully yet. So I think we've got a lot of things we can do prior to putting a label that we could lose the campus.
I'm not suggesting that, but I was hoping that's how you would respond, and I think that's our direction.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you.
Oh, Mr. Barnes has one more thing.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Boyce, since you asked the question, one of the things that came out of my conversations with Dean Bunn is that the Curry campus right now is at a generous 30% utilization. So
And you
we
give
are...
and you give the annual drop-offs, for lack of a better term. Could you repeat that so the citizens know what's going on there?
I don't, we did not get into exactly what that number is, but when we discussed sending extra money to Curry, he did mention that we're currently, the Curry campus is at 30% utilization rate. They have a 24-seat chemistry lab that they don't use. They have computer labs with beautiful Mac computers in them that they barely use. So, you know, that's the issue. So
That reminder is a huge help.
So what I would like to ask through all of this is, I want to work with the campus. I want to make this work for Curry County. And I think the only way that we can do this is that this board write a strong letter to the campus asking that they bring someone from their budget committee and someone from their executive board down to meet with us in a workshop, and we can discuss their budget for Curry County, show us where they spend their money, where they are lacking, and let's start to develop a curriculum for this county that we can all live with, and we get our money's worth. There are avenues that we have, and I have read an email that said that we have no choices, that, you know, this district is set in stone and we can't change it. I've had conversations with some people, including Higher Learning and some other people, that this district could possibly be changed, and it would take an action, but that it is and could be looked at much more seriously. So I don't want to really go that avenue. I would like to work with the campus, and let's get this straightened out. Let's get the proper teachers in there to reinvigorate this school and also look at vocational training. And I would hope that this board, if I would ask that this board, if I make a motion, would send a letter to the campus requesting basically that they send someone from their executive board down and someone from their accounting department down to meet with us, and let's start to discuss the curriculum at the campus and how we can all work together.
Is that an official motion?
Yes, it is.
I will second that, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Gold?
I just want to make one comment. I don't think it's in our purview to determine the curriculum for a campus. We could suggest things, but I don't think we have that authority to determine the curriculum.
I agree 100% with you, but I would like to see that the campus do this for us rather than face further action that some may agree is possible and some may not agree is possible. But we need to protect the taxpayers of this county, and we need to let the taxpayers of this county know that we will not stand for getting 38% of our taxpayers' money spent in our campus and the rest of it's being shipped somewhere else. I think it's time that we look more seriously into this, and all I'm asking for is let's get to a table again and talk about this and chew on it for a while so that we can hopefully, like you said, offer them suggestions that they will adhere to versus ending up in an actionable event down the road. Commissioner Boyce?
You want that letter to include our fierce concern for the taxpayers?
Absolutely.
Thank you. You have a second?
Any further comments? Roll, please.
Mr. Gold.
I'll say aye. Hopefully, it'll go in the right direction for the letter. I won't sign it unless it is.
Commissioner Boyce?
Vice Chair Boyce.
Yes, with no conditions or disclaimers, thank you. Yes, Mr.
Chair
Staff
Pash.
President.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
All right, moving on, C, tsunami siren funding resolution. Jeremy Dumeyer, Emergency Management Coordinator.
I'll just do a little introduction on this. So when we had our meeting in Port Orford, Jeremy did a presentation on the tsunami sirens, and at that time, we discussed how to formalize what he was presenting or talking to us about. So the direction that the board had was to come back with a resolution. So, Jeremy?
And for the
Morning,
record,
sir.
Jeremy Dumeyer, Curry County Emergency Manager. And correct, we did have a presentation on the tsunami sirens, the state of the tsunami sirens in Curry County. And in that presentation, we talked about what those tsunami sirens are used for. They're not for a local tsunami event. In fact, I don't think any warning system will work in a local event. They are made for a distant event, Alaska, Kamchatka, Japan, Chile, so on. Of the 17 sirens we have in Curry County, 4 at this time reliably work. That's after having repaired 2 in the last 18 months. One of the ones that I repaired may not be operational at this point already. The conversation came about as a result of a repair that I looked at Flores Lake for that siren. The head on that unit was $22,000 for one unit. A complete new siren system is going to cost between $50,000 to $100,000 depending upon the nature of the setup. That's for the siren head, the electrical, the computer system, the motherboard, the heating system, the radio frequency systems. It's a lot. The capability of these tsunami sirens is extremely limited. With the new systems in place, you have an effective range of 0.8 miles. If you had all 17 sirens stacked up end to end on the coast, which we do not, we have one at Cape Ferrelo, for instance, you would have about 13.5 miles of coverage from these tsunami sirens on an 80-mile coastline. We don't even have sirens in place where there could have been use, such as Pistol River along the coastline. We have one at the fire station, but not on the beach. So with the cost of these tsunami sirens juxtaposed to the systems we have in place, we have the Everbridge Reverse 911 system. That costs us $6,500 a year. We have the ability to use WIA, where we can alert cell phones within range of a tower. We have first responders, law enforcement, volunteers that can clear the affected areas of a distant tsunami. And again, a distant tsunami is not something that's going to push up to where we're standing here. That's a local event. Distant tsunami is confined to the bays, harbors, and beaches, and it's a very shallow strip, if you will, of evacuations that would have to be affected. It was my recommendation at the end of that presentation that we no longer as a county support the operation of tsunami sirens. And I did put a caveat in there that if municipalities want to use their sirens, that they still could. I am aware, for instance, Port Orford, when they respond to a fire call, they actually have a timer on their wall. They turn that timer past 3 and then back to 1. That's 1 minute for their fire hall, for the firefighters to be notified. They can actually turn that to 3 minutes and, if they want, use their tsunami sirens. There are municipalities that do that, but no other county in Oregon on the coast operates tsunami sirens. So that was why I asked that we no longer support them.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Commissioner Gold?
I had a call, I think it was a couple of days ago, from a fellow who had helped install all of these sirens, and I referred him to you. Did he contact you?
You're referring to Pete Peters?
Exactly.
Oh.
And so he understood the reasoning behind it all?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
So do I have a motion on this resolution?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I will second that.
With
Further-
sadness.
Further discussion? Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce,
Yes.
Chair Pash.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
All right, next we have D, private property sale proposal for Jensen and Garmin.
All right, this relates to our county properties that we own, and the fact that if the value of the property is under $15,000, the board can engage to sell that directly. We still have to put a notice in the paper and things of that nature, but it does not require a sheriff's sale. So for this item and the next agenda item, what we have are properties that are in the Flores Lake area where neighbors have asked if we would sell the adjacent lot to them. So the first one is Jensen and Garmin, and it's a .24, about a quarter of an acre, and it's immediately adjacent to their property. Their property is developed, it has a home site on it, and so they're asking us to sell that to them. So,
I have a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I'll second that.
Further discussion? Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce.
Yes,
Chair Pash.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
thanks for all the work.
so we'll proceed with, when we have several of them, putting the ad in the paper and doing the formal notice on that, and then bringing it back to the board.
Okay. Next one is the E.
Yes.
This is the sale for Buckenson.
Backinson. So this one is adjacent to their property as well. It's adjacent to part of, their property is a little different. It's not as, their property is not a direct block like the previous one. Instead, this is kind of kitty corner and adjacent to some wetlands, so it's not really adjacent to their home. But it is a strip of land. It's about 25 feet wide. In this one, they have, agreed to pay the sale price that we've offered. They have asked for a reduction in the application fee because it is 25 feet wide. And I explained to them I could not authorize a reduction in the application fee, that would be up to the board. Just so you know, the previous one, Jensen and Garmin, they have agreed to pay the regular application fee, so.
And how much piece of land is this?
This one's 25 feet.
By how long?
That I don't have.
Okay, do you know approximately, is it a quarter acre, half acre?
It's less than 1/10 of an acre.
Less than 1/10, okay. So would we like to reduce, is there any comment on reducing the application fee to, let's say, $750?
I kind of have a problem with that because we have things in place for application fees, whether it's 20 acres or a quarter an acre, and once we make this exception, then we're setting a precedent.
Okay.
So I have a problem with that.
It does take the same amount of work to push the paper regardless of the price of the
Right.
sale.
Thank you, Counsel. Do I have a motion then?
I move that we accept the private property proposal from the Backinson
As written?
as written,
With no reduced fee.
With no reduced.
with no reduced fee.
Do I have a second?
Second, Mr. Chair.
Any further comment? Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce.
Yes,
Chair Pash.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
Next, we're moving on to the All Care Grant Award for SINT, South Coast Interagency Narcotics Team.
So we've talked a little bit about the SINT program in the past, and this is a program that the Sheriff's Department taps into. It's run out of Coos Bay. What they actually run, they have the interagency team up there that comes down and they educate people about drugs and the associated criminal behavior that would be could result from that. They also primarily focus on working with our Sheriff's Department on people that are selling drugs. So basically catching them, following up, doing investigations, and seeing that through to fruition. The problem is, in the past, the county has not contributed to it. We've been taking advantage of their services, and they're at risk of having detriments to the program because they're they're covering our county is what they're doing. We used to pay in, and then with budget cuts, we stopped. So the sheriff asked if there was any way to start paying back into the program, and I approached All Care, and All Care was willing to give us a grant for half of the cost. So they have agreed to give us $12,500 in exchange to making sure that the public education part really got some more attention here than perhaps they would ordinarily provide us. So SINT has given us a lot of educational materials. We've distributed them to the schools. We had them distributed at the fair, and we have some other items that we still have to get out there, as well as doing some public presentations throughout the year, and we'll report back on that. So we're really grateful for that, but I do want people to understand this is really a big, more focused on law enforcement, really making sure that we track down these people that are selling the drugs and make sure they're held accountable.
Well, first, I'd like to say thanks for your work on this and reaching out to All Care to do this, and also thank you to them for writing this check, that I'm actually looking at the check, so it's not just words, they've already paid for it. I have seen Cint in action personally. They were actually happened to be in town the other day when something happened, and they were moved in to help. So I'm, as this board has demonstrated, we are in full support of law enforcement, and to have an organization like Cint be able to assist our sheriff's department with information and hands-on, for me, it's a home run. So.
I also want to just do a little plug for All Care. All Care has helped us with so many things.
Yes, they have.
That is the same organization that agreed to give us $100,000 to address some of the housing issues a couple of years ago. So they're a really good partner for us, and there's a lot of stuff we could not have got done in the county if it was not for All Care.
It's
All
true.
right. So can I have a motion to accept the grant?
I move that we accept the All Care Health Grant Award.
Second?
Second, Mr. Chair, with a comment,
Yes, sir.
pushing back against drug activity and everything that spins off of that for our youth, for kidnappings, trafficking, all that goes with that. This is one of the most pleasurable votes and attention that I can possibly think of in the last 2 months. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further comments? Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce,
Aye.
Chair Pash.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
Next is G, summary of property tax collections for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2019.
So this comes from the assessor's office, and they're required to give you an annual report. And in the past, it's kind of been delivered and hasn't been recognized, so the public isn't seeing the report. I don't even know if the board was really seeing it. So this is presented to you so you are aware of what those collections are. It will be made part of the meeting. It is part of the meeting packet, but it's also part of what JJ will keep in the file. The assessor, Jim Colin, has told me that if the board wants to discuss any details of this, he is willing to come back in a workshop and go through it with us. But for now, it's just basically recognizing that it's been submitted and what the contents of that is.
Okay.
So.
All right, next we're going to go to, do we need an action on that?
I think just acknowledging the summary that it has been submitted for the year.
Okay.
So noted, Mr. Chair.
Next is H, appoint member to the Tourism Promotion Committee, North County.
So the county did adopt a transient lodging tax ordinance earlier this year, and one of the ordinances, there's two ordinances involved with that. One of them does talk about establishing a promotions committee. We did take action on this earlier this summer where we appointed members from Central and South County, but we had no members apply, or nobody applied for the North County position. There's two positions open. We have one application in, and it was submitted from Chris Hawthorne, who has the Hawthorne Gallery and the Redfish Restaurant. I've spoke with Chris before in the past. I worked with him last time, and he's a pretty engaging person. I think he's going to do a great job on there. So the recommendation is that you appoint him, and then you have to appoint a term for him. You have to determine what his term will be.
I missed that. Oh, the term, I got it. Thank you. Question, Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir. Commissioner Boyce?
So we're not getting, we've been fairly aggressive on trying to find another applicant or two in North County. This is a concern I think we share. Do we have any timeline? And, you know, I'd like, if we don't, and we don't get that other applicant come in, that we can approve, can we do one at large from within the county that knows tourism?
I thought we already had an at large.
We do.
There is one at large, yeah, but
We need another person from North County. Whether they live in North County is not an absolute requirement with me if we're limited here.
I understand. We happen to have someone in the audience here today that writes a paper for North County. Perhaps he could put a black line around county looking for tourism person for this committee, and please let your voice be heard for North County.
Hey, we can write.
Well, we could do a press release.
Yes.
I will say that John Jesuit, our administrative assistant, has been really instrumental in trying to spread the word up in the Port Orford area.
Yeah.
He has been frequenting places, trying to solicit somebody in. I think we might actually have somebody that will submit one, so we'll have to see if they submit the application.
Council?
I can't remember if we have an age requirement on it, but my recollection is, you mentioned John Jesuit. I have seen his wife be very active with future business leaders or the Student Business Association. And I'm just wondering if engaging the youth that way, if there's, I'll check the thing to see if there's any prohibitions on that. But, that might just hit a lot of different buttons to have.
That would be wonderful to have the youth involved.
John, are you able to talk to Gene about that?
Will do.
Okay.
Put him on the spot. I thought you were going to volunteer for a minute
I
there.
think it would be hard for me. I would probably be called to give advice to that board, and I'd probably conflict it out. But again, I live up there, and I know there's a whole bunch of good folks up there, so it's hard for me to understand why they wouldn't. And this is an important committee, so the difficulty of getting members is strange to me. So we'll get it done. Yeah.
All right, well, I'd make a motion, we appoint Chris Hawthorne for North County number 3. The term would be 12/31/23.
Second, Mr. Chair.
Further discussion? Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce,
Yes.
Chair Pash.
All right?
Mr. Hawthorne is appointed unanimously.
All righty. Next, we're going to look at I, which is Coos Curry Electric Co-op Grant Award for Strategic Plan.
For the next two items, I and J, these relate to the strategic plan that we agreed to do and we just approved the contract on in our consent agenda. So the grants are, we have two that have trickled in. The first one is Coos Curry Electric Cooperative. They have agreed to give us $1,000. That is above what they normally would give for this type of project, so we're really grateful for that. And the second one is the Realtors Association. Got a hold of Karen Kennedy, and her group agreed to sponsor what we call a smart growth grant. So the National Realtors Association has a program that helps with plans and things that kind of further their interests. So Karen's, the board that she sits on did agree to sponsor the application to the National Association, and they agreed to give us $5,000 towards the strategic plan.
Okay.
So we want to accept those two awards.
Okay, so I have a motion to accept the award from Coos Curry Electric and the Realtors Association Smart Growth Grant.
I so move.
Boy, this is a real struggle. Okay. Second, Mr. Chair.
Any further comments?
I have one. I just want to, again, a shout out to these people that are willing to help us.
Yes.
Coos Curry Electric, as you know, helps us with a tremendous amount of stuff. Just yesterday, they stopped by to say that they were donating 2 check reading machines to us.
Yep.
One for the assessor's office and then one for the TLT program. They also have a larger one if we need one that can accommodate, I think it was
700 checks.
7,000 checks.
7,000
checks. But they're willing, that's all stuff we're not paying for, that cooperative, which isn't just Coos Curry Electric, but all those consumers are willing to help us with. And I think people have to really acknowledge that the public is behind us on this, on a lot of these efforts.
And on that note, I also want to say that I spoke with him also, Coos Curry Electric, and we went downstairs, and they showed me about a $30,000 to $40,000 program that they had just designed and built. And I believe it was for our clerk's office. And they were donating that to them. And we have a server issue that we have to deal with in the next couple of weeks. We're going to have a discussion with the board. As you know, we lost our internet a couple of weeks ago, and in conversation with these people yesterday, our servers are fried, and we need to look to replace them. And also, if we do that, they will custom build our TLT tax and our business licensing programs for the person that will sit in that position. And that will be a $40,000 to $60,000 program that they will donate to the county.
I just want to finish up too. The other one is the Realtors Association. This is the second time they have stepped forward to support efforts like this. The last one was 2 years ago. They did the same thing, and they got us $3,000 to bring a national speaker to the area, a guy by the name of Joe Minakazi, who came and did 2 presentations for us about the value in improving your downtowns and how that can impact assessments and economic development. So both great partners.
Good. Commissioner Boyce?
And they're gonna keep adding to that if we show that we are very serious about moving forward on this and measured progress, and so that, and that's more pulling the county together. That's a countywide Realtor organization, so point well taken. The other thing, between the two of you, just identifying the in-kind contributions, I think that's the right term, that Coos Curry has done, it's over $100,000, not to mention the $60,000 that you just referenced there. So it's just,
It's
more
nice.
than noteworthy. Thank you.
It's nice to have partners in the county that are willing to work with the county to provide services. And I applaud both Coos Curry Electric and the Realtors Association and all who greatly give to this county. So it does not go without notice, and we applaud you for that. So can I, any further comment on this? A roll, please.
Commissioner Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce,
Yes?
Chair Pash,
Aye?
motion carried unanimously.
All right, we're going to move into our director's report.
Speaking of partners, I have several things to share with you. One is the new Curry Community Health handout and guide for the public. We are a partner with them, so we want to acknowledge that that this has been completed and that they've been working with, talking with Chair Pash and John Huddle, Council Huddle about it for a little bit, but, so that is complete. So, did you have other comments on that, Council?
No, no.
Oh, I thought I saw you raise your hands.
No,
Okay. The other one was,
Thank you.
so we've been talking about the person who will administer the transient lodging tax and building license ordinances. We did advertise for that position. We did do interviews on Monday. We found a candidate I think you're going to be really pleased with. An offer has not been made yet, but we will try to have that for you at next week's meeting, that approval. In community development, we talked about increasing code enforcement, adding a half-time position there. Along with that, of course, comes the associated clerical work. So we're at a point where we need somebody to do that clerical work. So what I'm going to propose next week is that Barbara Colton, who currently does our surveying functions, that she be made from 3 days to 5 days to actually take on that additional work, and then also to do some front counter work for planning and building safety that we also have a need for down there. Introducing our new finance director, who stepped out for a second, but we were talking about a forensic audit, and it was something that she thought was a really good idea because it's just basically a report card, a check to see where we're at. So that is something that I'd like to bring back next week for you to take action on. There was somebody that had offered to do that for free earlier, so we're going to contact them to see if that offer is still available. Otherwise, if not, that'd be a pretty expensive venture, so it's going to be it's an important decision for us to make, like all of them are. Want to talk to you a little bit about the need for a wage study. The one we had is very outdated. I think it's time that we actually, we're having concerns with employees and what they be paid and changing these job descriptions and stuff. And I think we really need to sit down and look at a wage study that reflects our current employees and the current situations, and also implementing back in, figuring out a way to implement the STEP program, because what I'm seeing is it's not very fair to hire someone and say, and you're never going to get an increase. I mean, there's really no incentive to come in and work. I mean, or to work harder or better or provide more. So that's something I think we need to seriously look at that I'm going to be bringing back to you. The finance director was talking about a program out there through LGIP, not LGPI, but LGIP, which has a way to plan for the future for some of these expenses, such as these servers. The servers to do new servers, we're going to need $250,000, which we don't have. We just went through the towers, which we didn't have the money for that. We're always in this reactive state. And she's aware of this program where we can take some of our money. There's like a max of $200,000, I think, that you can put in there. And it gets a pretty high interest earning. It can accrue pretty fast for us. So the thought was maybe we need to look at some of those programs for these big projects. So, if you put it in now, by the time, normally if it was 5 years out for an item such as the servers, we would have the money we need. So I think that's something we have to look at doing, are some of those investments that we have not been doing in the past. And this is a pretty simple program. And there aren't limits on what you can actually create that account for. So I think we need to start looking at those, and she's going to be working on that. So that's something we'll be bringing back to you. And then I just want to give a kudos to our county council, John Huddle, who was nominated for the Who's Who of America.
It was amazing.
So
I received it in the mail.
And so how much do you have to pay, John?
I don't know. I'm still in shock, so.
So
we interrupted you.
So that's my last time, and that just, shows to a sample of our great staff and how hard they are doing things. People do recognize what they're
Nationwide
doing.
recognition, nationwide organization recognizing.
They do that for teachers, too.
Puts a
Send it to
smile on my
everybody.
face. Awesome.
So that's all I have
Tongue
right
firmly in cheek, Mr. Hall. Don't worry about it. Okay.
Commissioner Gold, your comments?
Just one, a couple of things here. I am very pleased to see that we're planning for future expenses or thinking about it. I am a big proponent of that. I'm going to go back a little bit to SWOC. Some of the comments made about the teachers doing dual credit in the high school, I don't think were entirely correct. In order to be a teacher doing dual credit for SWOC, your credentials have to be more stringent than the qualifications for those who are doing dual credit for OIT. And I know that Brookings Harbor does both OIT and SWOC. Also, I've been working with the principal there at the high school, and they're working on an MOU with SWOC for welding and trying to get more equipment in there, and I'm trying to work with SWOC to possibly get some money towards getting some of that equipment. And also I'll be working with the ad hoc committee involving community members, and I think this needs to be a bottom-up, not a top-down, of possible curriculum that would be of interest to the community, remembering that most of our community is, dare I say it, over 50 years old. So,
Age is 55.
yeah. So anyway, that's what I've been working on. Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe it's 55.4, which is exactly where I'm at. So I am your average Curry County citizen.
All right,
I'm
so
above
Moved up
average.
57.
we're done? Okay. I just want to talk a little bit on comments about the audit. I know when I came into office, I had spoken with Commissioner Boyce before I was elected about that. I feel it's a concern that I had. I wasn't trying to point a finger at anyone. I wasn't trying to accuse anyone of any wrongdoing. Mr. Barnes has expertise in that, and we also had conversations, and I felt like his conversation was leading toward that he had a positive response to it as well, of which I'd like to have a conversation with Mr. Barnes later this morning about. But I think it's imperative that the county knows that not only are we being mindful of the where and when and how the money in this county is being spent, but we're checking to make sure that it is spent properly and administered properly. Again, this isn't a witch hunt. This isn't anything to force an investigation or further action on anything like SWOC. This is just, let's look at things and make sure that everything was done to the best of what it was intended to be. And I would certainly look for moving something toward a forensic audit, or at least a something like Mr. Barnes said, picking out several points to look into in an area of the budget to make sure that there are no red flags that go or alarms that are sounded in that, just to let the constituents of this county know that we are paying attention and are watching how and where and why the money is spent. Again, I would also like to bring up, I know we've talked about moving meetings to Thursdays. And I know Commissioner Gold had some conflicting appointments with that. Would it be possible to, instead of doing the third Wednesday off, could we possibly consider doing it the second Wednesday as no Board of Commissioners meeting versus the third? I'd like to maybe look at doing something like that, only because there's something that happens on one of the evenings on the second Tuesday that would restrict me from, it's just making it a little bit harder for something, and it's just something that I would like to look at helping to do more of in my personal life. So if we could have the second week meeting off instead of the third week, it's just something that I would like the board to consider to look at doing.
Just to have that meeting off, is what you're saying?
Yes, instead of, like, normally right now, we have every third Wednesday off from a board meeting normally, make it every second Wednesday instead of every third week Wednesday. Just something for you to consider, and we can talk about it at a later
Just a
point.
comment on that. Prior to this year, the board only did have 2 business meetings a month.
It's true.
So we are up to 3. So, we're one ahead of schedule. So if we want to go back to 2 or switch it, I don't really think it would be an issue if I remember everyone's schedules, because I had met individually with the commissioners and we discussed schedules. And Wednesdays, if I remember, was not an issue for them. So if the board is okay, I think we should just pursue maybe switching that and get
I don't
that
have a
calendar
problem
out.
with that.
Commissioner Boyce?
You come up with a 6-month schedule, and boy, I got it marked down, so doesn't appear that it would change that at all. I mean, with the meetings we have.
It would just flip the 2 Wednesdays. So instead of having the third off, we'd have the second Wednesday off.
And you're okay with that?
I am okay with that. I'd have to ask our administrative assistant, JJ, if he sees any issue with that offhand. I know he has...
Why don't we look into it this week and bring it back up in next week's meeting?
Okay.
Good plan.
We'll bring in a schedule.
And that way everybody can look at their schedules, see that there's nothing conflicting, and there's no rush on it. It was just something I'd like the board to consider and make sure it fits for everyone. If it doesn't, then we'll just keep it the way it is. One more thing I'd like to comment on is the Elizabeth Dole Foundation. Through SWAC, I have been able to meet with some representatives, Yasmin Alfonso, from that organization. It is basically, it outlines the caregivers for our veterans and their families. Mrs. Dole has created a foundation to not only help with the caregiving of our veterans and all they go through, but to recognize the caregivers and what they go through, because it's not only the veteran that faces the challenges of being shot or limbless or in some cases mindless, but their husbands and wives, their immediate families, their children that are all affected by this, and the toll that takes on their families. So this foundation is a wonderful thing. I think we're going to have a presentation on this next week, and it's just something that I would like this board to consider joining this foundation. It won't cost us anything. It will help the foundation to grow. It will offer services to caregivers for these veterans that are so deeply affected along with their families, and I would like to hopefully have this board join in that. So we will be doing a presentation on that at our next meeting. And that's all the comments I have, sir.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to read a news release I got for the Forest Service yesterday. It won't take too long, Mr. Chair, but I think it's very important, and I'm hoping the citizens will hear me out here. Rogue River Siskiyou National Forest prepared for predicted lightning activity. Medford, Oregon Fire and Aviation staff and the Rogue River Siskiyou National Forest are strategically prepared for lightning activity in Southwest Oregon predicted this evening, which was last night. Keep your fingers crossed. The Forest requested and received additional severity funding from the Forest Service Regional Office in Portland in a request that triples the amount of firefighting resources on hand. I want to say that again. In a request that triples the amount of firefighting resources on hand in anticipation of increased fire activity across the forest. This includes response to wildland fires on Forest Service administered lands of Jackson, Josephine, Coos, Curry, and portions of Douglas and Klamath counties. So yes, Supervisor George's district or region, forest, parts of 6 counties. We know the lightning is coming, and we're prepared to aggressively attack all wildland fire starts. Aggressively attack. Having the extra firefighting resources on hand will greatly increase our capacity to new starts, said Fire Chief Officer Eric Hensel. He's pretty high in my book. With the increased funding, total resources for the force include 3 Type 1 helicopters, 1 Type 2 helicopter, 1 Type 3 helicopter, the large air tanker, and very large air tanker base fully staffed. An air attack platform with personnel, all fire lookouts staffed, 3 prevention and patrol units, 17 engines, 5 20-person Type 2 initial attack crews, 1 10-person hand crew, more on the dozers overhead, etc. As the week progresses and fire management leadership continues to consult with NOAA weather forecasters in Medford, the resources identified above could potentially double. So let that sink in. We are prepared for what is coming. Knowing that weather predictions can change, we'll be in close contact with NOAA. We'll be coordinating and collaborating with fire leadership in the Bureau of Land Management and the Oregon Department of Forestry to ensure the most efficient and effective response possible with the resources at hand, unquote. So I got a quick email from a good friend. He says, Court, there was a warning today on KPOD, hopefully a little humor here, concerning lightning and septic systems. If and when lightning strikes a septic system, it will likely travel up to the toilet and destroy it. So do not go to the bathroom during a lightning storm. So was that the Mel Gibson, Danny Glover movie?
I guess, yes.
Something similar.
So do we have to put a lightning rod on our septic field? Or?
So I have a couple more things here real quick, Mr. Chair. I'm just going into the rest of this fire season with great optimism.
By the way, I just want to, while you're looking, I want to make a comment. I met Mr. George the other day. I happened to bump into him going into DJ's as I was coming out, and he told me that was his second offense on that location that day, that he had been there earlier to offend with you. So I just, he didn't buy me lunch either.
I won't let him buy me
Good
lunch.
guy. He's a good guy.
We did have a meeting with 4 executives, South Coast Lumber, and that's another thing to report. That has been a long time in building that, building the trust back. On the Forest Collaborative, we have our meeting this Thursday, 3-hour meeting. South Coast has never really been invited to participate in that Forest Collaborative, and I'm very optimistic that they are taking that confidence and they're going to put somebody on that, and that's just huge news for the county, I think, to have their participation. You know, they're as good a firefighters as there are. So let me get the right mouse here. Oh, wrong one. This is something I'm going to talk on next time. This is the Vietnam Wall in Jackson County, Medford. So JJ Staff Jesuit was trying. That's another one, sorry.
That's the one you just opened.
Whoop. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let's see. Let's try this one. Right here?
That's the one you just opened.
Yeah, Fund 4.
Next one up. How about that one?
The only one left, isn't it? Okay, this is for Vietnam War Memorial. We talked about this several months ago and got some contributions. Right now we have about $1,000 raised in Curry County. And so my goal is to raise $10,000. Now, normally I wouldn't be thrilled about that kind of money going out of the county, but in this case, I think that, and I want the public to know that the best way to show support and endorse is through a donation. This will be right next, as I reported prior, it'll be right next to the new World War II memorial would be the northwest corner of the parking lot, or the grounds area. It's just, the World War II is just absolutely fabulous. So they're taking donations. Somewhere here here's the link. The link is on my website, and it basically is just Vietnam War Memorial Fund, P.O. Box 1448, Boring, Oregon, and their website is VietnamWarMemorialFund.org. And there's a couple news articles here that, let's try this one. Time for Oregon to get this done. And this is by Steve Bates. That's okay. I know it's not a link, but we can get the folks to go there, and we'll be working on this. And I think, as I said, I think 10,000 is a reasonable effort to send a message to Salem. And I have one more thing to report on that, Mr. Chair. Of the hundreds, it's about 300 men were killed in Vietnam from Oregon, 3 from Curry County, and coincidentally, 1 from each of our 3 cities. I don't have the years. I could certainly get that if the public would ever want to know that, but the emphasis is here, Patrick Kelly in Gold Beach, William Davis in Brookings, and James Lowry in Port Orford. So those are the 3 that we lost, and the 58,000 that we lost throughout that war in the 11 or 12 years. So the one going up in Medford, it's going to be very impressive and very important. So the other thing I have on housing, I'm going to be coming to the board asking for permission and I don't have anything specific right now other than just could we use some of our PEG funds if it's under the right categories to basically produce a video that says here's where we are with veterans housing, here's where we are with development or the lack thereof, available property, etc. So I'll be working on that. And this is also on my website. This is just a one-page white paper that basically says, hey, housing, just go with the categories there. And in concluding, I mentioned South Coast Lumber a bit ago. We're certainly sensitive to getting and having the best health care in Curry County. Those are our 2 largest employers, as you well know, South Coast and the hospital, both around 450, give or take. When I decided to run for this office, in discussions all over the county, there's a lot of people that believe that Curry County can be built back on those 2 entities, South Coast and healthcare. And so not just those as the 2 major focuses.
Can I make a comment on what you have up there
Sure.
real quick? This
Of course.
is something maybe council can check, but I saw, it says up there that most rentals demand first and last month's rent plus a deposit. And I believe that Oregon passed a law that said they cannot charge you last month's rent. They can do the deposit in the first month's, but they cannot charge you last month's rent.
I believe that's true.
And that is something that I think we need to let people be aware of because that helps make it more affordable to get into a home. So if people are still charging that, I think that's something they need to check into, to see, is that even legal?
Well, if that's true, I think there needs to be some sort of an article in the newspaper letting people know, because I think homeowners that are renting things out probably don't know that. They're not aware.
I've got a comment on that. I've kind of rushed to the defense of the landlords a little bit because there has to be an incentive for them to open up. That's number one, and that was a very strong debate in the legislature this last session because of rent controls. I just think we have to be careful there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right.
That's all I have.
All right, so at this time, we are going to enter into executive session. It will be on 192.6602A to consider the employment of a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent. So this meeting is in recess. All right, it's 11:46 on August 7th. We are coming back into session on our normal business meeting. And the board is asking staff to approve the hire orders for those that have had the backgrounds approved and the completed, and the other ones will have to wait for a further date. That is so ordered by the board. Meeting is adjourned. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
You've made a motion? Yeah. I'll second it. Thank you.
Any further comments? Roll.
Commissioner Gold.
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce.
Aye.
Chair Pash.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
This meeting's adjourned.